Well, Shabbat Shalom. We are thrilled tonight to have a very, very special guest who is a Denver native. We are thrilled to welcome home Rabbi Dr. Joshua Ladon. Rabbi Ladon, Dr. Ladon is the, Rabbi Dr. Ladon, Dr. Rabbi is the Vice President of the West Coast and Senior Faculty at the Shalom Hartman Institute in North America, where he guides the program and development strategy on the West Coast. And of course, the Shalom Hartman Institute is where our beloved Cantor Sachs is getting her rabbinic ordination as well. An award-winning educator, he was previously the Director of Education for the Institute in North America, guiding the content and curriculum of national and religious programs. But prior to Hartman, he served as the Dean of Student and Jewish Life at the Jewish Community High School of the Bay. He received his BA from Washington University in St. Louis and subsequently lived in Jerusalem for 7 years, where he completed an MA in Jewish Thought at Tel Aviv University. He also received rabbinic ordination from the Shalom Hartman Institute and a doctorate in Jewish education from the Jewish Theological Seminary. We could talk about that later. Seminary. It's been a long week, friends. Joshua also teaches in the Interreligious Study program at the Graduate Theological Union. His writing has been featured in many publications, including the New Republic, Religion Dispatches, Shema, a journal of Jewish ideas, and other publications. And we are thrilled to welcome Rabbi Dr. Joshua Ladon to our pulpit. And let me give you a microphone.
Nice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Maybe this will maybe it'll be turned on.
It is turned on. Just have to.
All right. Great. Thank you so much for welcoming me here. Thank you, Rabbi Black. Good evening, everybody. So I'm Josh. When I was talking to Cantor Sachs about what she thought I should speak about, the Hartman Institute. For those who know it, you're all impressed. And for those who don't know it, it's sort of like trying to explain what Harvard is to someone who hasn't heard about Harvard. So if you start to say, oh, it's this like really amazing think tank and great scholars and rabbis come together, you sound a little hoity. So I'm going to pause there and just say, we're this place where Jews come to think. And so I asked Rabbi Sachs what she thought I should speak about, and she said, I think my community is trying to make sense about what it means to be a Jew in America today. And since the Hartman Institute is really one of the places that thinks about what we might call the Torah of Jewish politics, that maybe you will have something to say, Josh. And I said, okay, yes, I definitely have something to say. However, when you're a guest scholar at a congregation, what you want to do is leave people feeling warm and fuzzy, and maybe they get to laugh a little, and if they cry, it's like the good crying. And yet, for many of us today, we're wondering, what does it mean to be a Jew in America? We are watching our core narratives that have been developed over the last, let's say, 100 years, because the last century was quite the Jewish century, especially in America. And we're asking questions about what does it mean to be a Jew here in America today? And I thought about that as Cantor Sachs asked me to speak, and I looked at this week's Parashat Re'eh, which begins with this very famous line. It says, Hayom, on this day I put before you blessings and curses, and you should choose blessings. And I think most of us, if I said, okay, are you going to choose blessings or curses? Most of us would be like, okay, blessings, and then we can all put our hands down and I can sit down, because if we're all going to choose blessings, great. The problem or the challenge for us is not about whether or not we're going to choose blessings or curses. The problem is, can we identify what counts as blessings today and what counts as curses? Or to quote Rabbi Ken Chazin, who recently I heard him say something like, what ethics is not choosing between good and bad. It's about choosing between good and bad and bad. And so right now, we're trying to figure out, what does it mean to choose between blessing and blessing and curse and curse? Can we tell the difference? Can our community tell the difference? Individually, we might feel like we know how to tell the difference. But I just want to point out, and what I mean by our narratives are crashing, let me offer a couple of observations. That's just my bio, which should have started on the floor, so we don't have to worry about that. October 7th, for many of us, changed the way we thought about the world. In fact, we might say that if October 7th, all it did was strengthen what you already believed about the world, about the Jewish people, about Israel, about Palestine, about Palestinians, then there's actually probably some work that you have to do. Not because you have to align with one side or the other, but in fact because it should shake up our narratives. But when we start to think about what happened on October 7th, it has created a war in Israel. There are hostages. There is deep suffering in Gaza and in Israel. We know this. It has also transformed our community here in America. And the Jewish world is searching for meaning. And just to give you a sense of some of what we're dealing with, certainly we're dealing with what my colleague Yossi Klein Halevi has talked about, and Yossi is a fellow at Hartman. He and Daniel Hartman have a podcast called For Heaven. It's the most listened to Jewish podcast in the world right now. Yossi said, you know, on October 7th, Israel became the most dangerous place for Jews in the world physically and the most safe place for Jews in the world psychologically. And he made that observation, and what he was saying was, that goes against the core narrative of what Israel was supposed to be for the Jewish people. It was supposed to end the feeling of being in a pogrom. It was supposed to end the feeling of being unsafe. So that's one crash that we're wrestling with, that sort of anchor. A second crash that we're navigating is, when I say the last century has been a Jewish century, we have gone essentially from having no home to having two amazing homes, right? There is a homeland in Israel where there is a vibrant, thriving Jewish world, and America, it should be noted, is one of the longest standing Jewish communities in history. We're 450 years nearly. That's an amazing heritage. So oftentimes we think of, oh, we came from the old world, but actually we've been around here for a while. And we thought in both places we had created safe homes, and all of a sudden, the safety in Israel is being matched by a sense of, are we safe here? And part of that question of, are we safe here, relates to the fact that for American Jews, we have not only bought into, but we have helped build. We'll get to some nice parts. This is getting sad, I recognize. This is getting scary, and I'm sensitive to that. We have not only committed to, but we've helped build the liberal project of America. If we think about what America has been, and what certainly this congregation has contributed to Denver, is about being part of a larger community. It's about building something beyond our individual tribe that makes flourishing happen. And yet after October 7th, and really, we might say before October 7th, we have been watching the core institutions of liberal America. I don't mean politically liberal, I mean like the idea of liberalism. Those core institutions, government, free media, and our university system and public school system, we'll say, are three core institutions that have allowed the Jewish people to flourish here in America. It has allowed others to flourish. And yet, all three of those we've watched since October 7th struggle to recognize the challenge that the American Jews are facing. And the reason why, just to remind you, why I'm pointing out these crashes is because we're told you should choose blessing and not curse. And yet, in the face of not having a clear set of narratives, that our core Jewish narrative of America might be falling away, it might be in a moment of revision, how do we choose blessing? What does it mean to step forward with blessing? I want to offer a couple of suggestions. I'll say the Torah offers very clear suggestions, a number of which are in conflict with our own lives. For example, in Parashat Re'eh, it says, okay, you should only worship in this place, in the land of Israel. But certainly many of us are part of a broad, vibrant Jewish community here in North America, and we have created amazing, vibrant Jewish communities to worship in. So what does it mean to step forward into blessing in the 21st century in America? I want to suggest our first opportunity, our first response should be a response of community. And what I mean by community is to look towards our neighbors, our Jewish neighbors and our Jewish adjacent neighbors and our broader community here, and not just reach out in a framework of political alliance, but actually in true community. Rambam, Maimonides, the great scholar, he lived, by the way, he lived what we say between lunch and recess, like 11:35 to 12:15. The great philosopher and legal scholar says the following: you are required to visit the sick and comfort the mourner and gladden the bride and do all of these activities that are embodied activities. You have to go do these with people. You have to show up for these other people. And when you do that, you will fulfill what the Torah says as ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. Maimonides is not saying you have to feel good about it. In fact, he's not even saying you have to feel love. What he's saying is that when we connect with one another, when we do the simple behaviors and activities of caring for one another, of showing up, we transcend the boundaries of ideology and we enact what counts as love. And in our 21st century, in which it's very easy to feel inundated by information, we can see the entire world because they're in our fingertips. We have phones, we have computers, we can be a part of the whole world. To turn towards one another and to show up for one another in those times of need, in constant moments, whether someone is sick, whether it's for their birthday or their bat mitzvah or for their wedding, but also in their times of need when they're sick, when they are mourning, when they just need some help. To show up, not because you know them, not because you like them, but because you care about fulfilling this commandment of loving your neighbor as yourself. That cultivates an ability to be with others and to transform our local community, and it will extend and expand outward. And I'll offer one more thought. In this week's Parsha, when it says, I put these choices, blessing and curse, before you on this day, God says, Hayom, on this day. The Hasidic rabbi, the Kiddushat Levi, 19th century Hasidic rabbi says, Hayom, on this day. Why? Because on every day, God renews creation. And so we should not just read this as Hayom on this day, we should read it as Hayom as in Bechol Yom. In every day, God renews creation. And if God is renewing creation, as we said in tonight's prayer service, in tonight's tefillah, what that means is the potential for radical change exists in every day. In every day, we have the possibility to recreate this narrative. And it's not going to happen. Our sense of being strengthened, our sense of the confidence that American Jews have exuded for the last 100 years will not end tomorrow. And it won't be strengthened tomorrow if it's just on one of us, if it's just on each of us alone. It only happens when we engage in it as a community, as a collective, and we see the possibility, and we seed the possibility for those of us, whether we have the next generation in our homes. I'm thinking about the fact that I have a bat mitzvah in 2 months, so mazal tov, or for those of us who don't have the next generation in our homes, but we have the next generation next door or down the street, that we have to see the possibility and seed the possibility and renew creation together each day. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much for having me.
Shabbat Shalom. Wonderful words of Torah. Thank you so much. We're thrilled that you're with us, visiting your father, which is also wonderful as well. Ed, glad to have you here.